One aspect of Sonic the Hedgehog that often gets overlooked is the power of its fan base. Over the years, the franchise has cultivated this following that's gone from being just a bunch of kids that like to play as the fastest thing alive to this massive group of creative individuals churning out game after game after game, digging into the lore of the series, discovering unfinished works and secrets buried within. In a lot of ways, the D-pad wouldn't even exist at all if it wasn't for the Sonic community.
And one thing that separates the Sonic community from that of other franchises are the opportunities that Sega afforded to two of its most prominent members, letting them go from fans to something more important.
The story begins with a Sonic fan game all the way back in 1997 called Sonic and the Seven Rings. Spending its early days being built in a game creation tool called the Games Factory, original developer Ron Echidna became frustrated dealing with the technical limitations and sought out someone with experience in the C programming language, leading him to bring on Simon Tomley, better known to the community as Stealth.
While working on Sonic and the Seven Rings, Tomley started thinking about ways to make Sonic development simpler, helping disassemble various Sonic games for the Sonic Stuff Research Group, and inspired by the Sonic 2 hacking guide released to Simon Wai's Sonic 2 Beta website, he eventually was able to develop a level editor called SonEd in 1999 on his own website, Organized Chaos.
The program was pretty revolutionary, even giving complete amateurs at Sonic development like myself an easy way to alter level designs for any of the Sonic ROMs for the Genesis. Nothing I made was any good, don't ask. SonEd was pretty neat. Not only did it allow users to make modifications to levels from all four of the classic Sonic platformers for the Genesis, but it was the very first level editor for the PC version of Sonic CD as well. And on July 31st, 2005, after numerous updates to the original editor, Tomley released SonEd 2, which added support for not only the 32X game Knuckles Chaotix, but its Sonic and Tails helmed beta version Sonic Crackers as well.
While all this was going on, Tomley was taking on more and more responsibility for the coding of Sonic and the Seven Rings, ultimately becoming the sole programmer on the project by 2003. While he was able to scrape together a basic engine from existing code, he became increasingly frustrated with the limitations of what he called Engine 01, leading him to start from scratch and create Engine 02 from the ground up as a multi-platform game engine for more comprehensive Sonic game development. It took until the following year for him to return to the point where Sonic and the Seven Rings even resembled a Sonic game at all, by which point the project had been renamed Sonic the Hedgehog Project Metrics.
We spent a lot of time talking up Simon Tomley's engine designs and Project Metrics, but he was also a pretty prominent fan game creator outside those projects as well. For a 2005 Sonic hacking contest, Tomley had organized a group of about a dozen sprite artists, musicians, programmers, and level designers to create a modified disassembly of the original Sonic the Hedgehog called Sonic Megamix.
That September, Tomley had also put out one of the most influential Sonic hacks of its time, and one that Sega claimed couldn't be done: Knuckles the Echidna in Sonic the Hedgehog. While initial indications were that there was a bug in the original Genesis title's code that caused it to lock up if Knuckles used his signature glide move above the scrap brain conveyor belts, it was eventually revealed that the real reason Sega never bothered with it was much simpler: palette limitations. Sonic 1 would have resulted in a wildly discolored Knuckles.
That didn't stop the community from noticing the major step forward in the creation of this hack, and Stealth soon became synonymous with creative quality hacking in the Sonic scene in the 2000s. By 2008, he had successfully started to port Sonic Megamix over to the Sega CD, as well as managing to create the imaginative Sonic the Hedgehog GBA, a port of the original title to the Game Boy Advance in direct response to Sega's insistence that the infamously buggy Sonic the Hedgehog Genesis released on the system in celebration of the franchise's 15th anniversary was the best possible port the game could expect.
Tomley's version ran at a crisp 60 frames a second, while the official port suffered from massive jitters. Graphical errors, musical bugs, and physics engine mistakes were all corrected, and just to add insult to injury, he was even able to sneak in the addition of not just the Spin Dash, but also Tails and Knuckles as playable characters. The game was only half finished when it was posted in August 2008, but it did manage to get the attention of another prominent figure in the community, Christian Whitehead, better known as the Taxman.
Around the same time Simon Tomley was working on Knuckles and Sonic 1, Christian Whitehead was developing a completely original game engine of his own in an attempt to meet or beat the capabilities of the engine used in Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles. The engine and corresponding game had gone through numerous iterations, starting out in Multimedia Fusion before being rewritten in Visual Basic and once again in C++. In 2007, he presented a playable demo to the Sonic Amateur Games Expo for Retro Sonic, which was built on what he called the Retro Engine.
The demo only consisted of one original level, Egg Gardens, and a rebuilt version of Emerald Hill Zone, but it was popular enough to get noticed by the community. Another fan game called Sonic XG, originally Sonic the Hedgehog Forever, was being developed by Sir Ewan and Joe Waters, aka Nightmare, but after 2 years was failing to reach completion. Noticing the talent of Whitehead, the teams merged and combined the project into Retro Sonic XG in 2008, utilizing the level designs of Retro Sonic and applying the visual elements of Sonic XG.
The same year, Whitehead was also brought onto yet another fan game project called Sonic Nexus, in an attempt to help lead developer Brad Slingerland Flick complete it. Flick had been using an engine known as Sonic Worlds before attempting to use the new XG build of Whitehead's Retro engine, but when the project continued to stall out, Whitehead joined the team to assist.
In March of 2009, the taxman was dealing with a pretty taxing development schedule when some news from above caught his eye. Sega was soliciting ideas from fans for games to port to Apple's iOS devices.
Now, Sega was already in contact with Backbone Entertainment to make an iOS port of Sonic 1, but Christian Whitehead had other ideas in mind. Looking for someone to collaborate with, Christian Whitehead contacted Simon Tomley and made his case for a proof-of-concept video showcasing Sonic CD running smoothly on an iPhone. While not much was mentioned about the pitch, it clearly must have gone over well because in 2011, Sega released Sonic the Hedgehog CD for the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, iOS, Android, Windows Phone, Apple TV, and even the Ouya.
Oh no.
Developed by Christian Whitehead on his own retro engine.
This re-release, the one we played as part of the Supersonic Let's Play last summer, was extremely well received. It was an HD version of a rarely re-released gem of the Sonic series, made completely from scratch and even including both the American and Japanese soundtracks and Tails as a playable character.
Now, 2011 represented a huge opportunity for Christian Whitehead, but it did mean some things had to change regarding his relationship with the Sonic community. Earlier in the year, he'd announced that Retro Sonic XG and Sonic Nexus were being merged into a single project, Retro Sonic Nexus, but later in the year, Brad Flick was tasked with the responsibility of letting people know that it would have to be shelved, mostly as a result of his budding relationship with Sega. Later on, Joe Waters was able to pick up the original Sonic XG product and continue working on it from there.
So with that taken care of, and with Christian Whitehead being in good standing at Sega, at that point he started to work on trying to bring Tomley into the fold to work on the games with him. Unfortunately, that's where things start to get complicated.
See, 2012 in particular was a bit tricky for Sega. Unhappy with the response to several of their developed titles and seeing a sharp decline in sales figures, the company ended up suffering major layoffs to offset the monetary damage. Around the same time, in response to new information circulating on the internet regarding Michael Jackson's involvement with Sonic 3, community member Dissident93 attempted to interview several members of the game's development team, including the soundtrack team member shrouded in the most mystery, C. Sirocco Jones. Jones was very cordial in their correspondence, mentioning that he was hired directly by Michael Jackson collaborator Brad Buxer to work on the game's music, but stated that there were certain subjects he would be unable to answer due to a pending lawsuit, referring Dissident93 to Bobby Brooks for more information. When asked about the situation at hand, Brooks became very defensive, deferring any questions to his lawyer amidst what he called legal shit.
Not much has been revealed about what went down in 2012, but many suspect that it had quite a bit to do with the music licensing for Sonic 3, as it had been largely ignored in the previous year's Sonic generations, which focused almost exclusively on the Sonic and Knuckles half of the game. Undeterred by the internal issues within Sega, Tomley founded his new company Headcanon in anticipation of the possible collaboration and launched its official website headcanon.com on March 9th, 2013. 3 weeks later, at the Game Developers Conference, Sega announced Sonic the Hedgehog for iOS and Android, co-developed by Christian Whitehead and Headcanon. It was released in May, replacing the existing emulated version with the Retro Engine-powered installment instead, which, like its predecessor, included tons of Sonic 2 and 3 material, such as Tails and Knuckles once again playable, as well as brand new paths for the 2 extra characters to explore.
That same year, the pair released Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on mobile devices, adding in a reimagined and complete version of Hidden Palace Zone, inspired lightly by the Phantom of the Opera, and the next summer, Simon Tomley renamed Engine 02 as the Headcanon game engine.
That same summer, the two showed off a proof of concept for Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles for iOS at the Electronic Entertainment Expo, but noticed that while people seemed generally excited about it, any members of Sega that were spoken to tended not to reach back out to them to continue their efforts. Expecting the worst, they published a video of the proof of concept, including new custom special stages with green and pink spheres, featuring the Angel Island Zone Act 1 theme remixed by artist T. Lopez.
The following February, after a long silence, Tomley confirmed that legal issues involving Sonic 3 had prevented the trilogy from being completed on mobile devices, and intuited that the problem likely involved the game's music. 2 months later, when asked about it directly, Whitehead stated that he was not in a position to respond to any questions related to Sonic 3 or its legal troubles.
And that takes us to the last year. After nearly a decade of silence, Tomley canceled Sonic Megamix and announced that he'd been working in secret with Sega on a new project meant to recapture what made the Hedgehog great in the first place.
Now, not much was known about it at the time, but a super team was secretly being organized, including Brad Flick as a level designer, T. Lopez as a musical artist, and even Whitehead and Tomley were left with the daunting task of rediscovering that old Sonic Mania.
Test is a multi-stage capacity test that progressively gets more difficult as it continues. The 20-meter pacer test will begin in 30 seconds, so line up at the start.
that shit like I don't fuck with you.